everyone, and welcome back to Rush Roundtable. This is episode 120, and I will be your host, Alana. This week we're discussing overlooked Rush albums, ones that we find underrated, and full disclosure, overlooked means the panelists' discretion. So if we say that Moving Pictures is overlooked, as long as we got the research to back it up, totally fine by us. So I just want to give a second to shout out our new panelists. We have Carolyn, Gwen, and Allison. So welcome to the roundtable, guys. We're so excited to have you. And a quick happy International Women's Month. It's been it's our third annual all women's panel, and we're just so excited to be here. Known friends, new friends, just a couple gals coming together talking all things Rush because it's ladies' night. And we're just so excited.
But Rush doesn't have any female fans, Mommy. Nobody likes Rush except guys.
I forgot.
I know. And I'm so excited to invite, commenters to talk about how a women's posing in their underwear in the, Moving Pictures recreation photo that we post, because that's always a fun one to get. Either way, it's engagement for our accounts, so we welcome it. And I invite commenters to talk about their own two overlooked albums in the Rush discography. I'll remind you guys towards the end of the evening to comment down below. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to the Rush Roundtable YouTube page, as well as follow our socials and all the other folks in the panel. We have great social media presence, and we're so excited to get started. So without further ado, we're going to jump in and start with Allison. I will say with this preface, that we are starting with the second most overlooked in our opinion, and our second round will feature the most overlooked. So if you have one that you're debating that you feel more strongly about, just save that till the next round, and then we'll go out with our fists up, and we'll get into some brawls, I'm sure. So Allison, kick us off.
Yeah, well, great. Thank you. I would say my second most overlooked Rush album is Counterparts. And I think that is because the whole thing is about relationships and like friends, like your partner or spouse, but also like your relationship to the world, to strangers. I think Neil talks a lot about, nobody's hero. He was very uncomfortable with hero worship of himself. But that song talks a lot about who do we worship as heroes and why, and are they worthy of that, and that sort of thing. I think it's a great hard rocking album after kind of the synth era. And I also just love the wrap up with Everyday Glory. We all have to do our part to make the world a better place, even though when it's hard, and I've always just enjoyed that song. So I'll keep it short, but that's my second most overlooked, underrated.
Couldn't agree more. I think it is such, Counterparts is near and dear to my heart. I love it. I love the weight of it. And like you said, I think it's Rush's sexiest album. Talks a lot about relationships, talks a lot about, I think it's a fantastic album, and I think that's a great choice. And if we're good to move on, I have no problem moving on to Viv. Viv, hit us with your second most overlooked album.
My second most overlooked, Caress of Steel. I think that the length of the songs, I think that the trippiness of some of the songs, I think that people didn't understand. I guess it was a guy thing back then, the real prog masters songs. I think Neil challenged everybody, but I think it's coming into fruition now. People understood it back then. But to me, them coming on board with Neil and what they did and the light that they fired with this album, to me, is epic. To me, it said, here we are, take it or leave it. I just think if you listen to how young they were, what they did, their ages, you can't, it's just epic.
Yeah, epic's the best way to describe it, I think, and especially that era.
That era is very tough. It's very
Yeah.
tough for a lot of people. But I think if you sat down and you listened to who they were and what they were trying to accomplish,
Stunning.
and I think
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. All right. Vicky, you're up.
All right. So I actually found the question a bit troublesome to begin with because from my perspective, all Rush albums are gems in and of themselves with rich treasures in every one that are different from the last. So I struggled with it a little bit, but if I had to choose, my second most overlooked album is Hold Your Fire. Why is this album overlooked? I don't know. I have no idea. But if I had to guess, I would say that it's because it's a fairly big departure from the rest of their catalog. And as a result, I think when fans maybe first heard it, it just didn't sound familiar to them. It might have sounded odd or discordant with what they knew about Rush. It's heavy on keyboards, which I know some folks struggle with. I don't. I love the keyboard era. And the melodies are in this album are a bit more subtle and restrained and almost ethereal in some cases. And for those who love the sort of butt-kicking element of Rush, that might have been just too disparate. And so it created some sort of dissonance in their mind. The reward, though, for sticking it out, pun intended, is incredible depth and soaring guitar work and lyrics that give you enough to think about for like 20 years. And so this album might take a little bit of time for some folks to grow on, but it is well worth it. The song Mission, for example, is the most uplifting and goosebump inducing of any Rush song in my humble opinion. It's my favorite song of all time. So Hold Your Fire is my pick.
Yeah. Ryan's going to be super happy to hear that one. I know.
Absolutely. We've
Hold
had
Your
this discussion.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's more relevant also now than ever. It's one of those ones that's definitely worth the re-listen if you guys haven't listened to that one in a long time. From beginning to end, I'd argue too, like one of its entirety albums. I did that with Fly By Night not too long ago, and that was kind of eye-opening to just sit there with the vinyl playing in the background and like being like not forced obviously, but that whole encompassing, like there is no skips, there is no, manual in my car to switch it. And Hold Your Fire is another one of those ones that it's definitely overdue for my ears.
Agree.
So.
And I also recommend headphones for the entire Hold Your Fire because there's things that I hear in headphones that you don't necessarily hear just in the air. So
yeah, totally. All right, Carolyn, what's your second most overlooked album in your opinion?
Yeah, so number one, thanks for having me. And then number two, I also struggled with this, similar to Vicky, and I'm sure all the rest of you, because all of Rush's albums truly seem to be underrated. Just depends on who you ask and who the audience is. I know all of our Rush fans are probably going to hear all of these albums and be like, oh yeah, they're all so amazing, just like the rest of us. But for mine, I chose Presto, which I actually have the framed poster right behind me, and I just realized that as we were getting set up. So, Presto is definitely my, I think, second most criminally underrated Rush album. I think it gets a bad rap because of the production quality, which I admit is definitely lacking. But I think it's due for another remaster for sure. I want to hear some heavier bass sounds, but one of my favorite things about this album is that when I was listening to it, I was probably in 6th grade when I really got into Presto. And the themes all seem to come from a young person's perspective. There's a lot about, kind of like the deep moments in our psyche when, we might be struggling with some things and aren't really sure how to face it, how to stare things down. There's this theme that Neil always has, which is like just the duality of self that exists in each of us. And he really explores it through so many of his lyrics. And I can truly say that this album had such an impact on me when I was a kid. And, even thinking about songs like Red Tide, I mean, it was so before its time in terms of thinking about how we approach climate change, how we think about climate change, but it can also be such a great analogy for so many other things. So I won't just keep talking forever, but yeah.
You could, and I'd be happy. I love Presto.
Also, I think, one of my favorite title tracks as well. I love Presto. I love Presto as a track and album. And it's like I couldn't agree more with any of these, and yet here we are limited to 2. But we'd be here forever, and I don't mind that, but I do have to pay my bills. So, Kira, you're up to bat, my friend.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back. I struggled to just say that. I'm sure we all did. I will say to all of the viewers out there, all of this is my opinion. So if you disagree, please tell me how you feel. I want to know what everybody's like picks and choices are because we all have such different perspectives as humans, as listeners. So I really went back and forth between 2 or 3 albums, but I have decided that I'm going to go with, drumroll please, Test for Echo. This Test for Echo is an album that I recently discovered its greatness. I will admit that until about a few months ago, it was not one of my favorites. I'm sorry, Rush. I'm sorry. It sounds terrible. But Test for Echo has just got a very interesting and unique vibe. I'm not the best with describing things. I'm not the most eloquent person, but I feel like it's got a very spiritual and exotic vibe. I don't know. When I listen to Test for Echo and Resist, Carve Away Stone, and Totem, I just imagine myself sitting on a mountain meditating, doing yoga. I really like the themes about like, human connection, worldly connection that is explored. I really like Virtuality, which is not a song a lot of people like, but I think it's really cool talking about sort of how we're connecting in a digital and virtual way. I mean, really ahead of its time, but Neil basically predicted social media, so congratulations to him. But I think it's an album that just gets pushed to the wayside. To be honest, it's not really loved. I'm sure Donna will agree. Oh, great, wise Donna. But yeah, I think Test for Echo is lovely. I think that if you don't like Test for Echo, that you should really give it a shot. Resist is like one of the most beautiful Rush songs ever written. So if you don't like Test for Echo, please give it a chance. Do it for me, okay?
Hey, I love Test for Echo. I think there's some hidden gems on that one that's made it into my playlist over the years, and that's definitely one I think that is overlooked and so often easily dismissed by folks. So great call out. All right. Gwen, another new friend up to bat. Let's go. I'm so excited to hear what you think.
First off, I want to say it's nice to see a panel that's all women talking about Rush, because if there's anything that I'm sure we all experience is that girls can't like Rush. I mean, one time I wore a Rush and Rio shirt to the movies, and some guy was like, "But you're a girl," and I just wanted to slap him. So this list was a little hard because, looking back at all the album and the years when they came out, it certainly stirred a lot of memories, like my first introduction to that. And I've basically been talking about Rush and Service in the 7th grade. And except for Donna, I might be one of the older panelists. So I had to double check some of the years. And I was like, you know what? I have a slightly different perspective on this because, I was there when these albums were new. And don't hate me for this, but I'm going to have to go with Snakes and Arrows only because, being a DJ, that album that's got like 3 instrumentals on, it's not going to be radio friendly. It's not going to get you a lot of airplay. Also, it's not with Terry Brown. It's not Atlas Studios. And there are other, emotional connections to Terry and the studios. I may not be thinking about the albums in the same way that you guys are. Did I lose you or bore you all to sleep?
No, not bore at all. It's like, I think all the perspectives within the Rush Kingdom, if you will, are so fascinating. And I think every perspective is so different. So I hands fully gripped tight. I couldn't agree. I was introduced to Rush ever since I was a little baby, but that's because my dad was such a big fan in the heat of everything. He was born in 1964. So it's like his is very much the perspective of them on their up and up, whereas mine is like, oh, dad's dragging me to this concert and then leaving going like, I could never tell him that I liked that, It wasn't until Geddy Lee was in my top 8 on MySpace that he found out.
Yeah, like I know it's weird to say I've been telling people about Rush since I was in the 7th grade, but like when my classmates were into Iron Maiden and Bon Jovi in the 80s, I was like, you gotta listen to Rush because it's not just about the music, it's about the lyrics, and the drummer writes the lyrics. So that's kind of why I threw this one in there, because Neil's lyrics are so important. And, you know, now that he's passed, it means maybe a little bit something extra. So to have an album with 3 instrumentals, I feel like we missed out on a little extra something there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's totally agreed on, especially the folks that, you know, can see their career from, you know, beyond a world of a different generation's perspective, I suppose. Donna, let's wrap up that first round. What you got?
Obviously, I've got to go with Fly By Night. And the reason I have to go by Fly By Night is partially because I was there. And I'm not talking about that metaphorically. I mean, I was around at the very, very beginning of their career. I've been around as part of their career since April of 1974. And one of the great honors of my life is the fact that we've stayed in touch after, you know, all of these years. We're still in touch. I mean, I talked to Getty's sister as recently as yesterday. The reason I picked Fly By Night is obviously from a historical standpoint, it's the first album with Neil. But also you start to see the great gift that Neil is going to bring to the band. Now, agreed, some of the songs are not as well formed, as beautifully written, as whatever, as some of the subsequent songs. But just like I say about the first album, whenever everyone, oh, that's just primitive and John Rutsey, and I'm like, excuse me, there are flashes of brilliance in that album, okay? And Here Again is a great song. Finding My Way has held up beautifully. And there's this song called Working Man that I hear some people still like it. You know, and may John Rutsey rest in peace, okay? He was not Neil, but he wasn't expected to be Neil. He did what he needed to do for where the band was at that time. And what I think is great about Fly By Night is you start to see what it was that Getty and Alex wanted their next drummer to do, what they wanted their next lyricist to do. I mean, if you listen to some of the songs very carefully, I mean, even Anthem, okay, fine, Neil is still in his Ayn Rand point of view. But on the other hand, that line about, you know, it was for me, not you, that I came to write that song, this song, he's talking about the fact that the artist creates because it's what the artist does. You know, why are we here? Because we're here, roll the bones. You know, why does an artist create? Because that's what an artist does. And Neil just took it and ran with it. And if you listen to the album carefully, you start seeing those places where you're like, yeah, I can see what he's trying to do here, okay? Even Fly By Night, which is such a gentle, nice little song. It's got some great guitar work. And you start understanding, these guys are going to take it in a new direction. They sound good together. They've already got this coherent vibe going on. And I just, you know, I think Fly By Night is just a really good song. I even like Baitor and the Snow Dog, for heaven's sake, you know? I mean, I was around when Howard Unger leader Hearns explained about Ray Daniels' dog terrifying his dog. And it just, there's all of these little pieces of history that every time I listen to it, it's like, yeah, these are my friends. This was the next step in their career. And what a privilege for me to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Fly By Night. And a lot of folks, of all places on TikTok, have had a lot of discourse with Neil and previous authors previously mentioned of acts of influence. And to me, it was never direct quotings or him taking that text for gospel, because he wasn't that type of musician or author or just human in general. I think it was very truly taking ideals and rewording them with his own art and perspective in mind. And I think
Yeah. And even songs like Making Memories. Okay, again, very simple, but they're starting to look at, oh my God, we might make it. Okay, we were just a bar band in Toronto. Nobody even knew who we were. Okay, I mean, we got more applause in Cleveland than we ever got in Toronto.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it's like people are coming out to see us. We got fans in Pittsburgh. We got fans, I mean, various and sundry places where like people know our music. And now we're actually like, yeah, we're homesick. We're just kids. Okay, when you look at the picture that's pretty well known that was taken in the summer of '74, where I'm holding up the album where they had just signed with Mercury, and everyone, oh, they don't look very happy. They were scared to death. They were kids. They had just like, this was the first time they were on a major record label. They had a management company. They had a booking agent. I mean, a couple of months earlier, it was like nobody knew their name. And now suddenly it was like, oh my God, they're out on the road opening for some really good bands and showing that they've got what it takes. And when I listen to Making Memories, I think of those young guys who came from Toronto, who had no idea what the future held in store for them, and yet who were starting to see that these things that they had wanted were going to start happening. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And for anyone who thinks that Fly By Night is simple,
Yeah,
has not ever tried to play those songs, I can attest to that, being in a Rush tribute band, that those are some extremely complex songs to pull off.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I'm going to end the round with my quick 2 cents here because it was already repeated. I'm not going to lie to you, Gwen. My brain took a screenshot because mine was going to be Snakes and Arrows. And I was like, wait a second. Hold on. How can I redefine? What is there another one?
Do you mind if do we mind if we take a second to say how old everybody is? I mean, I don't care. I'm 53.
I am 28. I will be 29 this September.
That's okay.
47.
Yep.
75, but still young and cute.
Absolutely. Definitely.
I'm 50.
Listening to Rush keeps you young, let's be honest.
It does.
It does.
I'm 31.
I'm 27. I want to be as wise as Donna Sunday and just as youthful when I'm 75.
Yeah, no kidding. I think there's something to be said about the crocheted hats. I think it's the hats, the accessory.
It's a snood. It's a snood.
Oh,
it's color coordinated to whatever I'm wearing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Awesome. Very cool. So that is the end of round one. I won't spend too much time on Snakes and Arrows because, I mean...
So what do we win? What do we win?
Well, that's going to be determined at the end. I'm working on a very fine point system. Also, if you folks, I don't know how Zoom recording works, but I will say that I am taking screenshots of like different groupings of folks throughout this. And at the end, we'll do one group one where we're all smiling at least. But I am taking a few candids. If it plays in the video playback, apologize for random screenshots of folks. I don't think it will, but we'll go with it. I don't think we do enough candids on the panel. So, all right, starting with round two, we're going to stop up at the top left for me, and that's going to be Allison. Give us your most overlooked Rush album.
I'm actually relieved nobody said this on the first round. Power Windows. I gotta say, there are a couple of songs on there that are among my absolute favorites. Territories. I mean, if you can't listen to Territories right now with everything that's going on in the world and realize we don't know what international means, and we're looking at the eyeglass through reverse, for sure. Mystic Rhythms, one of my all-time favorites. I'm transported to walking through a subway station in Beijing, China in the 90s, listening to that in my headphones and thinking, holy cow, what am I doing on the other side of the earth? Marathon, great song. But I think a lot of people poo-poo this album because it is this and Hold Your Fire kind of the height the synthesizer era, and so some people don't like that. But I think this one for me is one I enjoy, from the Big Money all the way to Mystic Rhythms, and I can listen to it over and over and over again. And this is another good one for headphones. I was just listening to it this afternoon, prepping for this with my just AirPods. Really incredible. And you can hear a lot of stuff that you haven't heard before. So Power Windows, give it another try.
Totally. I have that one. I've been meaning to play on vinyl again for a while, because that's one I haven't popped out in a while. And there's something about sound layering and everything else that does, benefit from the electronic, audio enhancers, if you will, to bring it front and center. And I think that's definitely worth a re-listen, especially very timely, very relevant, as a lot of Rush. I don't think it, much like Donna, it is very youthful and very cute, even, in 2022. And I think that's not a lot of rock bands can claim that. So definitely one that Rush, I think, is definitely overlooked for as a whole, is staying relevant with the material. And Viv, let's go. Your most overlooked Rush album.
I'm going to do a repeat. I'm going to Hold Your Fire. I wore out Mission. The lyrics are just stunning. They're beautiful. Forget the hard, people mistake it because it's not hard rock. That's not Rush. Rush is everything. Rush incorporates everything, every style. You have to mold with the times. You have to mold with the lyrics. The lyrics are just beautiful. I mean, there's not a lot of talk about, because it's not hard rocking, because it's light on the songs. There's nothing light about these lyrics. There's nothing light about these rhythms. There's nothing light about Geddy's voice anywhere. It's beautiful. So Hold Your Fire for me.
Agreed, definitely. And it's, there's a lot of synthy rock out there that often gets the pass on what's rocking and what's not. And I feel like a lot of Rush's,
Taishan label into Hold Your Fire. I love Taishan. I think it's gorgeous. I see Neil sitting on there on the top of the mountain. I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
so
totally. That's often when a lot of folks will defend until their last, earthly day, if you want to call it like that. And
the rocker,
I'm with them. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Right.
All right, Vicky, you're up next.
Preach it, Gwen. I mean, I'm always amazed at hearing about albums or songs that I've loved my entire life that are not that liked by others. I almost kind of hard to be burst out of my happy bubble, because I'm going along just thinking Hold Your Fire is this fantastic album. And then I hear from the community like, oh, that one gets a lot of flack. And I'm like, what? Why? Yeah. So that's really hard. But okay, so my number one most overlooked album is Snakes and Arrows Live. Mm-hmm. So it is... why is this album overlooked? Again, I'm completely baffled by it, but it's likely because, sort of like Hold Your Fire, some fans didn't resonate with Snakes and Arrows. Again, that's confusing to me, but that's what is. The studio album has some strange melodies, kind of structurally, that might take a little bit of time to internalize or get used to. And while it's heavier than Hold Your Fire, it is still a fair departure from an album like Moving Pictures. So that means if Snakes and Arrows is overlooked, that Snakes and Arrows Live is going to be even more so. But what a shame, because the album is beautifully mixed. So the sound quality in the Snakes and Arrows Live DVD, if you put that on your big screen TV and blast that through a speaker, I mean, it's just spectacular sound. And it also brings to life so many of the Snakes and Arrows songs that were on the studio album. I mean, the live version of The Way the Wind Blows is nothing short of spectacular. And that Alex Lifeson solo in there is, I think, one of his best in the entire catalog. So there are also a lot of fantastic versions of older Rush songs that maybe are more widely appreciated on Snakes and Arrows Live. So do yourself a favor, do not skip this album. I mean, if you do nothing else, just listen to the Way the Wind Blows live, and you'll just be completely blown away. And then go ahead and listen to the rest of it while you're at it.
Shouldn't be skipping any albums.
Exactly.
No way.
Absolutely. That, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm always so amazed when I find out that some song I absolutely love is kind of maligned in the community. I know there's different
And
perspectives. That's
song on
cool. But
catalog.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you, Gwen. I mean, Viv.
the, that live set list is unreal. That was my first live show, and I was very, very lucky to see Rush 9 times before, they retired. And I look back at that set list and I was like, if only I could appreciate it for what it was when I was, so naive.
Digital Man, Mission, Entre Nous. I mean, Secret
and
Touch, so many good songs.
Entree New. Oh wow, that just did that whole show.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Carolyn, you're next.
Sweet. Well, I actually had to call an audible because now that Hold Your Fire has been done twice, I was like, well, I can't make it 3 times. But Power Windows has only been said once, so I'm going to go with Power Windows as my top one. It is one of my favorites to pull out on vinyl. I mean, you kick off with like the big money and you got that bass line and get it just shredding it. I mean, I think we were also talking about it earlier, like how it's like traditionally regarded as one of those synth heavy albums. But when you kick it off, like, I don't think you really realize that at first.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I love Power Windows. I think all of my commentary that would have been about Open Secrets can also translate to Emotion Detector, which might be my favorite lyrics of anything that Neil's ever written. It cuts you right to your core. And truly, like, I think it only makes more sense as I've gotten older, because I was playing this album all the way through in like 7th grade and I thought I understood it. And now that I'm older and start hearing like, Brene Brown's like shame research and talking about what vulnerability really is and how much strength it requires to be vulnerable and, open yourself up to scorn, as one of the other lyrics says. But, you talk about trust being as rare as devotion, cynical thoughts, not being able to trust people with your feelings also. And again, like we were talking about earlier, the duality of human nature. So we can shift back and forth between these, like, and he even touches on it in like Kid Gloves too, thinking about you want to be really cool. And so you kind of like draw back, but then sometimes you throw yourself wide open and start acting like a fool. It's just something that I think really resonates with all of us. And we can all relate to that at different points in our lives. And, I was thinking about, as you were talking about territories earlier, Manhattan Project, kind of the same thing. We've got this other power and we're walking a fine line, trying to mitigate conflict. And you think about Manhattan Project and talking about like nuclear weaponry and all of the potential consequences of those actions in the lives that it can damage. It can be really heavy, even though it doesn't sound like as heavy as a song. Like if I didn't speak English and I was listening to that song, I don't think I would realize just how heavy the actual words are in it. But yeah, you've also got Marathon, which like absolute banger. Like if I'm in my car, I am cranking Marathon every single time. From first to last, the peak is never passed. And you're just like, one moment's high, you're just crushing it. But yeah, I mean, Power Windows is one of my absolute favorites. So I think we touched on most of the songs that you didn't. So I feel like that was a good alternate. We can have some of our favorite underrated albums.
For sure. Absolutely. And Brene Brown's Shame Research, some of my favorite stuff to get into. Fantastic stuff. And I think Brene Brown and Rush, I think that's a good combo.
I would have loved, like, if we had gotten Neil on one of Brene's podcasts, like, I don't know. I think the world might have imploded. It would have been amazing.
Absolutely. I think that's like a lost Rush Roundtable we should do, is like collaborations we never got.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I'll make sure to note it so we can tell Ryan that we want to do it. Okay, Kira, you're up next.
Hi again, ladies. Okay, so this album's been said a few times, but I honestly cannot think of anything else, and this is pure bias, so I'm sorry, everybody. But it's Hold Your Fire again, which I think really speaks to the amazingness of this album. I will tell everybody here, especially the Amas know me very well, I am a Hold Your Fire stan. Till the day I die, I will defend that album on its pedestal.
As you should, honestly.
As well you should. And we'll be right there behind you.
Thank you. Thank you. I got some support. I got an army over here. It's in my top 5, though my top 5 albums kind of rotate depending on my mood and my mindset. But Hold Your Fire is always going to be in my top 5. I mean, a lot of fans, as Vicky said, and as everyone has said, don't have an affinity for it because it's a more jazzy tone kind of album, but I'd rather enjoy it. And I like that Rush has got a lot of variety. You know, variety's the spice of life, guys. Like, I love the heavy Rush stuff. Clockwork Angels is my #1 favorite. I really like heavy Rush. But Hold Your Fire is a really nice change of pace from all their other albums. And I just love it. And in terms of Neil's writing on multiple themes about human nature, this has to be one of my favorite albums. There's just so much depth and breadth and meaning, and it's so emotional, so poignant. You know, and I think that a lot of these songs are not only highly relatable, but elicit such an emotional response. I don't know about you guys, but Time Stands Still is the kind of song I need to be in the right mindset to listen to, because I will be honest, it makes me cry. That and Bravado.
100%. Yeah.
Oh, and it's like it's like a river, because it really gets to the heart of, you know, humans being nostalgic. We always wish we could go back and change the past. We always wish that we can go revisit the past, that we can relive memories from our youth. I'm only 27, but even I was a former performer, and I really miss those days sometimes. Like, I have days where I'm crying because I really miss performing. But also I really like how there's other themes about, you know, the journey of life being a rocky journey, and Prime Mover, one of my other favorite songs. You know, Turn the Page is sort of in that vein about new beginnings, right? You know, turning the page. I just love it. And the lyrics in some of these songs are really dark if you think about it, but the music is more lighthearted. So you really have to sit there with the lyrics and read them until it registers. But I really like the themes of human nature, nostalgia of the past, how life is rocky and we have to learn the lessons from it. And I also really like how it touches on the primal instincts of human beings. And last thing I will say is that considering what's going on right now, I think Lock and Key and these other songs are really starting to resonate with me a lot more, because if you think about it, the themes are timeless. You know, we haven't changed. This was written in the 80s, but history's repeating itself.
Neil also transparent, so everything moves with the times, and all his lyrics seem to work with whatever's going on in the world. That's the beauty of writing also.
Exactly.
So true.
So I wish more people gave this album a chance. Like, come on, y'all. Those of you that don't like Hold Your Fire, just listen to it and read the lyrics and sit there, and you will love it. It's so beautifully written and
I don't
poignant.
think it's dark. I think it hits home for some people. I think it's so emotional that I think maybe people are scared, because it does bring out a lot of feelings.
That's a good point. I had that sense really when I first listened to it. It was almost overwhelming.
You know, you sit there and you're listening to these words, and you're like, damn, that's me.
Yeah.
Damn. So I think maybe that scares people.
Yeah.
I think that's
true. Yeah, Time Stands Still, I agree. That's one of my all-time favorite songs. I listen to it almost every day. And it's that children growing up, old friends growing older. Oh my God, that hits me every time.
Yeah.
So
makes me want to, makes me want to sit during like a storm on like a back patio with a glass of like the Macallan, sip it neat, just contemplate my nearly 3 decades on the earth, just really like it's a chin holder, as well as holding our fire. And I really appreciate the music video too, because I think it's so futuristic in a way that wasn't really expressed by them before, and especially like with the green screen and everything, it looks so hilarious now. But for the time, I appreciate it for what they were attempting to do. And even having Amy Mann, like that's something that we never really got to experience beyond that video. That was just so, it's such a perfect, you know, Time Stands Still. I think time truly was held within that video itself. It's such a nostalgic piece that it holds so true for the era that it was made in. So Gwen, passing the mic over to you.
All right, don't hate me. This is a personal opinion. It's kind of like an apology too, because I feel like this particular album was overlooked by me. So I'm going to go with Old Bones, because growing up and listening to, and maybe like in the 7th grade, borrowing Exit Stage Left, and the first one I bought by myself was Signals. When I heard the rap part, I was kind of like, I don't know if that's what Rush is. I mean, I know that music changed, and now we're talking about the 90s, and I think in general grunge made me very unhappy because it felt like the era that was mine was over. And the lyrics now take on a totally different meaning, but at the time, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, I was like, Rush isn't a rap group. They don't to try to be like anybody else. I always thought that they did their own thing and they didn't have to listen to what the industry wanted them to do. So I guess I saw that as I wasn't sure, if they gave up a little artistic control or if they were trying to just, be hip with what was going on in the music scene. I just don't think it's the same caliber as far like, the depth of the lyrics. But now listening to it, I also appreciate their sense of humor, which is, a totally different aspect of the band. And before we run out of time, I just want to make 2 suggestions. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but how cool would it be if we all rented a van and drove to Rush Camp together and blasted some tunes on the way? And the other thing would be, I don't know if you have all heard about the Prague Peered event. It's scheduled for July. They hope to stream it this year.
Overseas.
You broke up a little bit. What?
It's overseas.
It's in Abingdon, England. I interviewed Mark Cunningham last year. The new t-shirts are going to be out soon, so even if people can't go, they can always visit North Court Music. And long story short, last year they raised several $1,000s and they donated it to the Head Case Cancer Trust in Neil's honor.
Wow, that's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, totally. Definitely worth the support
even
of the
Neil
t-shirt.
tried to order some shirts. So yeah, basically it's 2 days of music, about 24 hours of bands. Like I said, and when I saw something about it, I got in touch with Mark and I said, you really need something for fans who want to be able to donate but can't attend. And of course it was, there were still a lot of COVID issues. They ended up being short-staffed. They didn't have enough time to put together any live streaming, but there's a band I want to tell you about quick. They happen to love Rush, Dream Theater, and Iron Maiden. They're called Azure. They played that event and then they went on tour with another band that kind of took them under their wing. They're only in their mid-20s and they got #1 unsigned band according to Prague magazine. If you want to check it out, start with this Mistress. It's only 3 minutes long, but I think it will blow your face off because Chris, his lyrics and the tone of his voice are very Getty-like.
Oh, that's awesome. That's phenomenal. Yeah, any artists that can be taken in, that's awesome. Awesome, very cool. Thanks, Gwen. That's good.
I heard the song for like 3 seconds. I'm like, I gotta have them.
That's gonna for sure be one of my deep dives once we're wrapped and everything is hopping into that discography because they sound awesome. All right, Donna, bring us home. What you got?
So I don't know how much has been said about this album tonight, but let me mention Test for Echo. I don't think Test for Echo has ever gotten the respect that it deserves, okay? I think there are some amazing songs on Test for Echo. And when people talk about Rush albums that have great lyrics and Rush albums that do this and that, I'm always mystified that Test for Echo isn't mentioned, okay? In 1996, a lot of stuff was going on in everybody's lives, but still, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think The Color of Right is an amazing song. I think Half the World is an amazing song. I personally love Driven, okay? I find the line about it's my turn to drive very much about affirmation. It's like taking the wheel of your own life. It's about deciding that you're going to be in control. You're not going to let other people do it for you. But the song on the album that really speaks to me is Totem, okay? Possibly because I'm a former chaplain and possibly because I've taught comparative religion. While Neil was famously agnostic, he had no, a lot of people are, oh, they hated religion. No, they didn't. They just weren't particular believers. They were skeptics. They were humanists. But they never disrespected religion. Neil had deep respect for what his parents believed, okay?
And curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, and he would use imagery from Hinduism, from Buddhism, from Christianity, from, pick Taoism, pick a tradition. He was a reader. He was a voracious reader. And in Totem, you find mention of various traditions and all spoken very respectfully, the threads that bring us together in many ways. But there's one line in that song that I think should be engraved on, particularly in the world today. I believe in what I see. I believe in what I hear. I believe that what I'm feeling changes how the world appears.
I use that all the time in my life.
Absolutely. In other words, you only are what you believe. And I'm not talking about I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and darn it, people like me. No, I'm talking about if you look at the world like, this is all crap. What's the point? There's nothing I can possibly do. That will become what's true for you. And if you look at the world like, my voice really does matter. There really is something. Now, in the Talmud, and I've got this on my Facebook page, so, those of you that are familiar with the Talmud, it's Jewish commentaries on the Bible. And it says in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our ancestors, you are not expected to complete the task, but neither are you expected to walk away from it. In other words, I can't end prejudice in my lifetime. I'd like to, but I can't do it. But I can't use that as an excuse not to even try.
Right.
I can't look at my problems, not like me, Donna, but I can't look at the problems in society and go, well, those are too big for me. I guess there's nothing I can do. Because the truth is, you don't know when you are going to plant a seed. You don't know that something you are going to say. Shakespeare said the readiness is all. Sometimes people aren't ready. Sometimes you put it out there and it's like, I don't think so. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've mentioned Rush to people and they went, not for me. And then years later, they get back in touch like, wow, you were really right about Rush, And I find that with a number
Maybe
of
we
things.
should have a few.
Oh, yeah. Just because you put something out there and it doesn't result in immediate change, doesn't necessarily mean you failed. I believe the way I look at, I believe that what I'm feeling changes how the world appears. If you have an attitude where you can make a difference, sooner or later, what will appear for you is a way to make a difference.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of great stuff on Test for Echo. I really recommend a re-listen. And I don't know if that brings it home, but brings it home for me.
I feel right at home in my own,
Bring
my
it
own
on,
energy and
every single
That's
one.
a great reminder for these times, Donna, that, we all have a role to play in being present in the world and shifting things in some way.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I think that's what he was encouraging everyone to do for themselves with all of his lyrics.
Yeah, if you choose not to decide, you still have made it.
I know you were thinking that.
how prominent. Yeah. and it's, you know, brought it home just like Jean Valjean sings in the final act of Les Mis, which is a whole nother fandom I could talk about all day. It's different Broadway and how it correlates to Rush. Hamilton has a lot of Rush influence, as told by Alex Lackey himself, I think. So
Wow.
Alex Lacamore, yep. The baseline of the War of Yorktown is inspired by Getty baseline. So.
Oh my gosh, you learn something new every day.
Right? I asked him on Twitter once and he responded like a week later and I almost like threw my phone out the window. So I will wrap it up, just put a tiny bow on it. I was going to say Grace Under Pressure. I have the Grace Under Pressure logo tattooed on my right ankle and Snakes and Arrows rephrase on my left ankle, and on my right is Snakes and Arrows. So those are my two underrated albums, or overlooked. I think Grace Under Pressure is one of those overlooked by a lot of the rock fans in the world, especially with songs such as Red Sector A. Like, hello, I can't imagine a song more influential to me than Red Sector A, or, you know, Distant Early Warning, or Between the Wheels. I think that is, Between the Wheels is one of my favorite Rush songs of all time. So
best guitar solo ever.
Exactly. The heavy synth power to it, the vocals, the guitar, I think it all kind of
still gives me
yeah.
It's the perfect kiss of all the elements of the electronic era that people overlooked because it was electronic and synths were used. It has the perfect amount of I want fucking reverb from Alex spoken in, you know, Beyond the Lighted Stage, and as told, you know, through not Alex, but the general consensus as told by others. And I think I love that album. So I will always sing its praises when I have the chance. And with that, I want to thank all the panelists who have been here today, old friends, new friends, all the folks in between. And I want to thank the listeners and viewers for watching and listening. Here's your reminder, leave your 2 overlooked albums in the comments down below. Just bring the research to back it up, because if there's any fights happening, I'm not going to break them up. So you're on your own. Bring the research, and I'm so excited to see your guys' discourse. Thank you so much again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good night,
Thank you. Bye, everybody.